Hello, my dear students. Today we are going to discuss a poem, Tiger in the Zoo. This poem is written by the poet George Leslie Norris. Let's know information about this poet. George Leslie Norris was born on 21st May 1921. He died on 6th April 2006. He was a prize-winning Welsh poet and short story writer. He taught at academic institutions in Britain and the United States, including Brigham Young University. Norris is considered one of the most important Welsh writers of the post-war period, and his literary publications have won many prizes. This is third prize-winning Welsh poet, most important Welsh writer of the post-war period. His famous works are Finding Gold, The Loud Winter, Phoenix Living Poet series, Ransoms, etc. The word poetry originates from a Greek word meaning to make. A poet is thus a maker, and the poem something that is made or created. No single definition of poetry is possible, but some characteristic features of poetry may be mentioned. Poetry has a musical quality with rhythm, pitch, meter, and it may use figures of speech such as simile and metaphor. While quite a few poems in this selection are traditional forms, the unit also includes modern poems that are free from formal restrictions. The objectives of learning this poem: through learning this poem, students understand the importance of freedom. Students understand the dangers of deforestation and blessings of forestation, that is afforestation. Students understand that all animals will be happy only in their natural habitat. Through these lessons, students can understand the responsibility of present generation in preserving the environment and the earth. This lesson enables the students to learn to recite poem with proper intonation and rhythm. Few new words we can discuss here with their meaning. Here, the word it is given here, stripes. Meaning of this: long narrow bands. The tiger has black stripes on his body and a yellow background. Lurking. Meaning of this word: lying hidden in order to attack. The cat is lurking in the grass to attack the rabbit. Sliding. Meaning of this word: sliding, moving very slowly. The jackal is sliding through the grass in search of food. Plump. Meaning of this word: plump, fat. Plump body of the deer attracts the tiger very easily. Fangs. Long, sharp teeth. The tiger has terrifying fangs. The tiger's fangs are sharp and big. Key points of this poem. This poem contrasts a tiger when it is in its natural habitat and when it is imprisoned in a zoo. On a starry night, the poet sees a tiger in a zoo. The tiger moves slowly up and down in his cage. The tiger is full of rage, but is quiet in his helplessness. The poet is moved to pity for the tiger. The poet says that the tiger should have been in the jungle, but sadly, the tiger is locked behind bars in a concrete cell. The tiger does not take any notice of the visitors. The tiger is no longer free to move in his natural habitat. This poem contrasts a tiger in the zoo with the tiger in its natural habitat. The poem moves from the zoo to the jungle and back again to the zoo. First stanza of this poem. He starts in his vivid stripes, the few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet. In his quiet rage, he stalls in his vivid stride, the few steps of his cage on pads of velvet quiet. In his quiet rage. Explanation of this stanza. The tiger moves up and down of his cage. The stripes on his body are of strong bright color. The tiger moves quietly on his velvet pads, is full of rage but is quiet, because he knows that he is helpless here. Second stanza. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. He should be lurking in shadow, sliding through long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. Explanation of this stanza. Looking at the imprisoned tiger, the poet is filled with pity. He says that the poor tiger should have been in his natural habitat. Then at this point of the night, he would have been lying in the shadows of trees and sliding quietly through the long grass there near the water hole. He would be waiting for some fat deer to pass that way. Thus, he would be lying there in expectation of a heavy feast. Stanza 3. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claws, terrorizing the village. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge, baring his white fangs, his claw, terrorizing the village. Explanation of this third stanza. Here the poet imagines what the tiger would be doing in case he failed to find any way prey in his natural habitat. He says that the tiger would be growling at the edge of jungle near some village. He would be showing his white fangs and claws while moving here and there. He would thus become a cause of terror for the villagers. The poetess here gives a hint that if the natural habitat of tigers, if we destroy the natural habitat of tigers, They will be forced to turn to our towns and villages to find their food. Stanza 4. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. But he is locked in a concrete cell, his strength behind bars, stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. Explanation of the fourth stanza. The poet sees the tiger locked in a concrete cell in the zoo. In spite of all his strength, he now lies imprisoned behind the bars. Very slowly and silently he moves up and down along the length of the cage. He takes no note of the visitors who come to the zoo to have a look at him. Stanza number 5. He hears the last voice at night, patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the billion stars. He hears the last voice at night, the patrolling cars, and stares with his brilliant eyes at the billion stars. Explanation of the stanza 5. The tiger knows no rest during the day because of the visitors. Even at night, he remains disturbed due to the noise of the patrolling cars. He keeps staring at the brilliant stars with his brilliant eyes. Perhaps he is asking heaven why he has been imprisoned there. Let me give you the summary in detail. This poem contrasts a tiger when it is in its natural habitat and when it is imprisoned in a zoo. On a starry night, the poet sees a poor tiger in a zoo. The tiger moves slowly up and down in his cage. He is full of rage, but is quiet in his helplessness. The poet is moved to pity for the tiger. He says that the tiger should have been in the jungle. He should have been moving quietly in the shadows near some waterhole and waiting for a plump deer to pass that way. But sadly he is locked behind bars in a concrete cell. He does not take any notice of the visitors and is looking at the brilliant stars with his brilliant eyes. Now he has to be content with merely looking at the stars. He is no longer free to move in his natural habitat and look at the brilliant stars from there. This is the summary. My dear students, let's discuss some question answer. He stalls in his vivid stripes. How does the tiger look in his cage? The tiger has short, clear stripes on his body. He looks majestic as he moves slowly and quietly in his cage. He has soft velvety pads. He makes no noise as he moves. He has brilliant shining eyes. On parts of velvet quiet, in his quiet rage, what does the tiger do in his cage? It is a very small cage. The tiger can hardly take a few steps along the length of the cage. He doesn't take any notice of the visitors who come there. With his shining eyes, he keeps looking at the brilliant stars. He should be lurking in the shadows, sliding through long grass. What should the tiger be doing if he were in the jungle? The tiger would be lurking in the shadows of trees. He would be sliding slowly through the long grass. He would be sitting by some water hole and waiting for some plump deer to pass that way. Next question. He should be snarling around houses at the jungle's edge. What should be the tiger to be doing if he were at the edge of the jungle? The tiger would be moving around the houses in a nearby village. He would be growling while moving around. The sight of his white pants and his terrible claws would fill the villages with terror. Fifth question. Stalking the length of his cage, ignoring visitors. That is the tiger doing. Why is he ignoring the visitors? The tiger is moving along the length of the cage slowly and quietly. He sees that the visitors keep coming and going. None of them thinks of releasing him from his prison. The tiger sees that all of them are fellows without feeling. So he stops taking any notice of them. Next question. And starts with his brilliant eyes at the brilliant stars. Why do you think the tiger looks at the stars? The tiger has lost all hope from men. Now he has hope from heaven only. It is this hope that has kept the brilliance in his eyes. That's why the tiger looks at the brilliant stars with his brilliant eyes. My dear students, so far we have discussed this poem and we have discussed some important questions from this. Let us revise this poem from the beginning. There are 5 stanzas in this poem. Really, this poet has written this poem with wonderful words, keeping the tiger in his mind. Now he has written for tiger. He has written to free the animals. He is talking about freedom. Really, this poet, George Leslie Norris, Welsh poet, prize-winning poet, short story writer, wonderfully he has written about the condition of the tiger. Very beautiful, the tiger is very beautiful, is walking in his little cage. His beautiful stripes on his skin as velvet, like soft paws. But the tiger is not happy in the cage. Is quite angry about being confined in the cage. The poet says that if the tiger was not conformed to the zoo cage, he would have been hiding himself behind the long grass near some water body in order to catch its prey, that's deer. Also, he would have terrorized the residents of the villages around the forest area. But the reality is totally opposite to this. He was confined in the cage, which was made of strong building material. Was helpless there. He could not show his power to the visitors. Therefore, never tried to terrorize them. Tiger is described as being powerless here. The poet says that during the night he is all alone, hearing the voice of the patrolling cars, patrolling vehicles of police, and looking at the stars. The cage life has totally changed the tiger's personality. The poet is trying to say that the animal which is famous for its fearlessness and freedom is confined and sad due to the human beings who want to drive pleasure by looking at them in the zoo cage. There are so many new words are given in this poem. If you look at the first stanza number 1, the word stalks. Meaning of the word follows. Vivid. Meaning of this word bright colored. Pads, your paws of tiger. Rage, anger. In this second stanza, we can see the difficult word lurking, to be hidden as to wait for your prey. Plump, fat, already we have discussed. In this stanza, third stanza, snarling, warning sounds made by animals. Bearing, uncovered. Fangs, sharp tooth of animal. If you look at the fourth stanza, concrete, very well, building made of bricks, cement, sand and water. And if you look at the next stanza, patrolling, the meaning of the word patrolling, to guard, to vigil, the police, those who are taking care of that area. So we can learn new words from this. There are many literary devices used here. The tiger is personified because the poet refers him as he. He. Personification is used here. And many number of literary devices are used in this poem. You read this poem, and you also start to write the poem like it. Really, this poet has felt the pain of the tiger. He has written about the tiger situation, and he has expressed his views about the tiger's field. From the beginning, from the first stanza, if you look at that carefully, how the poet, he expressed his feeling on the tiger, it is given here. Stanza number 1, if you look at that, here the poet says the tiger that is confined in the zoo moves around the cage under his bright colored skin. He further says the tiger can take only a few steps because the cage is small. And it is not easy to move in it. One cannot hear his footsteps because he has very soft feet like velvet, because of which there is no sound of the tiger's footsteps. The tiger tries to control his anger by quietly walking in the limited area of his cage. He is angry because he is not free. Actually, the tiger should be lurking in shadow, sliding through the long grass near the water hole where plump deer pass. The poet says that if the tiger was free, he would have hid himself behind the long grass near the water bodies, so that he could easily catch a deer in order to have it as its food. Basically, the poet wants to say that the actual life of tiger is to live in jungle, where he could catch his prey and eat it, but the tiger in the cage cannot do so. And if you look at that third stanza, how the tiger expresses feel, the poet says that if the tiger would have been free, he would have snarled around the houses located the outskirts of the forest. He would terrorize people with his sharp tooth and claws. This would create fear among the people living in the villages. And if you look at the fourth stanza, the expression The poet comes to the reality of the tiger that is inside the cage. He says that the tiger is confined in strong cell, which is made of strong building material. He further says that as the tiger is behind bars, so his ferociousness is also behind the bars. He just starts in the cage. He never tries to terrorize the visitors because his power is restricted by the cage. Therefore, he never tries to terrorize the visitors as he cannot attack them. How sadly he expressed the condition of this tiger. The poet says that in the night, the tiger hears the sounds of patrolling cars. Patrolling cars are the vehicles of police which are used to guard at night. In the night, the tiger hears the sounds of these cars. He then stares at the shining stars with his shining eyes. The poet wants to say that the tiger is sad and as he is confined in the cage, as he cannot do anything. Therefore, he stares at the stars in the night and tries to divert his thoughts towards them. My dear students, you to think about the social conditions like it, and you can express your thought on the social problems like it. You can frame poem, you can write short story, or you can write any drama relating the social issues like it. How the poet has expressed his feel, his worries about the condition of the tiger which is in zoo. The tiger has written, really those who are reading this poem, you get awareness about the condition of the tiger. You to start to initiate anything to help the animals, wild animals, and to preserve and conserve the nature. Read this poem again, and if you have any doubts, you can ask me. I'll clarify your doubts. I'll meet you in the next session. Thank you so much, my dear students. Thank you so much.